Good evening and welcome to Más con Más. I am your host, Raul Canosa. Thank you for being with us again on this program. Appreciate you taking time out from your busy schedule to spend some time with us and meet some of the interesting people in our community and hear my views on what's been going on in news and financial markets during the past week. We've got a terrific guest with us this evening. Before I introduce him, I want to thank our sponsors, Longevity, Grimal Joyeria, Cachita Coffee. Without their support, this program wouldn't be possible. And I'm very pleased to bring with you this evening a very special guest. His name is Mario Murgado. Mario is perhaps one of the most successful businessmen in our community here in Miami-Dade County. I've known Mario for quite some period of time. He is the quintessential sort of automotive expert and subject matter expert in this area. A real, gentleman, very involved in the community, and has built an incredible business over the past almost 20 years now, Mario?
20 years, yes.
Anyway, so thank you, Mario, for being here. Mario Murgado. I want to start off by talking to Mario a little bit about his background so that you get to know him, perhaps not as well as I know him, but get a chance to meet Mario, the individual, know a little bit about where he comes from, his background, his experience in the industry. He's been in the automotive industry now for over 4 decades, which is a huge feat. But Mario, tell us about your start. I mean, you did not grow up in South Florida. You originally, when your family left Cuba, you went to Chicago. Is that correct? Or the Chicago area?
Correct. First of all, thank you so much for having me this evening. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you, and you humble me by your words. So thank you. My story is like many immigrant story from Cuba and like others. We're blessed and fortunate that we had a chance to come to this great country. I came to this great country in 1966. I came here first. Later on, my mother and my father about a year and a half later.
So did you come as part of Peter Pan?
No, it was Peter Pan. I was too young, and Peter Pan was after that, so we came in the Freedom Flights. So in the Freedom Flights when I came here, and then I had a wonderful, wonderful foster parent who took care of me. My mother came very quickly, my sister, and then my grandmother.
And where was that? Was that in Miami?
In Miami. In Miami. Then a year and a half later, my father arrived, and once he arrived, this country was wonderful, but it was also in a time it was challenging. In 68, the economics were not the best, but this country was wonderful the way they worked with my father and the way they said, what is it you know? Well, I'm an architect, but you have to go back to school and you can't get your license and everything else like that. At that time, they'd offered him something, was just go to Alaska. I always told my dad, they gave you a 1-2. I said, go to Alaska, we got a great compensation, great plan for you there. He thought about it, but after 2 days, he said, what else do you have? I said, Chicago. So that's how we ended in Chicago. So we arrived in Chicago, and Chicago's a beautiful story because I think many people never get a chance to know the great Midwest. Probably the most wholesome and most beautiful part about this country. And you never get to know America until you know the Midwest. I can personally tell you that it is the most beautiful, wholesome part of our country. The best people, the nicest people, and it's still a place that every time I go back, it is just a very special place for me.
But you didn't grow up in Chicago itself. You grew up on the outskirts, right?
Well, it's a great question. So when I first got there, I lived in the worst place in Chicago. So I lived in Cabrini Green.
Wow.
So that is the projects in Chicago.
Absolutely.
And from the projects in Chicago, we moved to Logan Square in Kedzie. From there, we moved to Melrose Park. And then the last 10 years, I lived in the suburbs. So it was a process that we went through. But ironically, 50 years later, only in this great country, could someone dream of coming from the worst place in Chicago. Chicago has 234 neighborhoods, and today have a store in the best neighborhood in Chicago, the Gold Coast. Right. So today, in December of 2017, my partners and I, we acquired a Honda and Volkswagen store that was not doing as well, and we have that store today in the best neighborhood in Chicago.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, but eventually you leave Chicago, you come to Miami, right?
I'll tell you about that. That's another great story.
Right,
in 1978, my father always taught us to be incredibly grateful to this country. Never would you hear that man complain about anything. Never would you hear a sour word. Never would you hear anything negative, because always about gratitude and always about you better do good in school because you're a guest here. You better do good here because you're a guest here. You better do. That was always the way we were taught. That was always the expectation set at home. That was always the foundation that he set in place, the expectation. But my father in 78, there's a snowstorm. There's a blizzard. That blizzard, it takes him like 15 hours to get home. So he's not that happy that day. 2 weeks later, he gets hit by another blizzard. That blizzard, he takes like 8 hours to get home. He says, you know what? If dumb birds know how to fly south, then I can fly south. And that's how he ended in Miami. So eventually every Cuban figures their way back to Miami.
Yeah, that reminds me. Some of you Cuban Americans watching this program will remember a famous Cuban comedian named Alvarez Guedes, who tells a great joke. It's a little bit off color, but he tells a great joke about how he decides to leave Miami and move up to Pennsylvania, and he loves it up there because of the change of seasons and how beautiful it is and the deer and all this stuff. Anyway, long story short, by the end of the story, he's like cursing, Pennsylvania and the snow, and he wants to get the hell out, and it's the worst place he's ever been in. So that reminds you a little bit about that.
A little bit of that. And I remember Alvarez Guedes, we used to listen to him every Sunday and listen to all the records.
Absolutely, very funny guy. But anyway, so you come to Miami, and at an early age, you started to sort of fall in love with automobiles and the automotive industry.
Always loved the automobiles, always had a love affair with them. Frankly, every time I was always his translator for everything. Everything in life, I was always his translator. And when we went to acquire a car, I was always the translator. And when we went there, he would always tell me, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so make sure you listen. And I would always listen, and I always enjoyed the cars. But I always had this feeling when I walked in the store, it must be the smell of the new car, the excitement, the energy, the enthusiasm of them. It really made me happy. And frankly, one of the places that we bought cars was Max from St. Charles, Illinois. He would buy Oldsmobiles there, and I fell in love. And Max always says, listen, when you're turning 16, I want you to come work here for us. I want you to come work with us. And I said, well, let me finish my education and do everything here. But I really, really had a love affair. And when eventually we were here, I decided to go work for Brayman. And I started working for Brayman in December of 1981. And as I started working for Norman Brayman, I started in sales. And I had a chance to go and pick because he had really marquee franchise and really marquee locations. Sure. And I worked for him at Brayman Honda at Bird Road, and I started my career there, and the rest would be history from there. I worked 20 years for him, and it was an honor to work for him. He's an icon in our business.
So you acquired your own dealership in 2004 time frame, roughly?
No, so May 21st, 2001, 8:08 p.m. I signed. Okay. How's that?
You remember?
You never forget when you sign on the dotted line.
Absolutely. And at the time, as I recall, that was the old Pontiac dealership on Southwest 8th Street and 7th Avenue. As I understand, it wasn't doing that well, right?
It was
selling a dozen cars a month or so?
It was a place they wanted to close. It was a place at that time that was selling literally 16 Hondas a month, and it was selling 6 Pontiacs and GMCs a month and 22 used cars. It was terrible. Wow. We used to have at Brayman Honda that I ran at that time. We had 98% of that store's market.
Wow, unbelievable. So that was almost 20 years ago. So you've gone from that one store and those dozen automobiles, and not to go into the details, but give us a sense of what Murgado Automotive Group is like today in terms of your footprint. And if you can give us just a sense of the annual revenues of the dealership as well.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's through God's blessing and through this great country and this community, which has really supported us, and through our people. It's all about people. Right. And it's if you develop the right people, and if you get the right people to do the right things, and you follow the process the right way. I have 2 partners that started with me from the very beginning, Alex Andreos and Rick Barraza. Right. And both of them are with me, along with the great team that we've been able to build. We started in that complex today, and today in that we house today Buick, GMC, Mazda, and Honda. And then we have Brickell Luxury, and then we have used cars in each facility. In that facility today, we sell over 9,000 vehicles. We started with 3 employees.
9,000 vehicles? How?
A year.
A year.
Okay. A year. Today, we started with 3 employees. Today, we have 246 employees there. From there, we have Ocean Cadillac, which was on the beach. We chased that story for almost 12 years to try to buy that store. We finally had that store. We're building a brand new facility for that in North Miami, right off the highway, 595. That'll be finally built and done by the second quarter of next year. And then from there, we went to Stewart.
You leapfrogged over Fort Lauderdale and went into...
Yeah, so we chased from 2002. Finally, in 2011, we were awarded the opportunity to open an Audi and an Infiniti store. In 2014, we opened an Audi and Infiniti campus in Stewart. We've opened those 2 stores, 2 wonderful, beautiful stores. We show the world what we can do when we have a brand new white canvas that we can start from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely spectacular. You invited me to that
Yeah.
inauguration. I remember it. Absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Having those 2 dealerships there very close to
And
each other.
we opened that, and then from there we have more growth there. Or later on, we've added now. We've opened recently our Alpha and Maserati dealership, brand new store that we've added there, and we have room for more growth that we're going to plan, that we have in the planning there. From there, we've opened in Chicago, the Volkswagen and Honda store that we acquired in December. Then we moved to New Jersey, and in New Jersey we opened a Ferrari, through acquisition, a Ferrari, Maserati, and Bentley dealership.
Wow.
And then we were awarded a Bentley and Maserati and Alpha dealership in Jacksonville.
Wow. So you've got an incredible sort of, portfolio of brand names, everything from Bentley to Volkswagen, quite frankly.
Yeah, we do, and Volkswagen owns Bentley,
Right.
Also as well.
Okay.
And most people don't know how much Volkswagen
That's
owns,
right,
and
that's right, it's true.
from Bugatti to Bentley,
Yeah.
to Porsche to Audi.
The industry, the automotive industry is a sort of multinational monster at this
Multinational,
point with multiple brands in their portfolio, and you sometimes are surprised to find out things like that, right? That Bentley's actually owned by Volkswagen, right? The people's car, right? Now owns Bentley. It's rather strange turn of events, but that's the way business operates sometimes.
Sure.
So fantastic. And in terms of revenue, I mean, can you give us an idea?
Sure. We'll do over 600 million.
Wow. So that's incredible. So from one dealership in downtown Little Havana, if you will, to dealerships spread out throughout the country and doing 600 million in sales.
And everything starts with, you got to believe that the grass is green where you're at. And,
Right.
and I've always said that to everyone. And I've always said from the very beginning, what's our goal here in Little Havana? And our goal here in Little Havana was not about selling car, because I think you can sell a car anywhere, but it's about spreading joy. And if you have the philosophy of spreading joy and doing that consistently every single day, good things will happen.
Well, look, that's very important because most people don't usually associate car buying with being a joyful experience.
It always
right?
it always hurts me.
Yeah, because
one of your last guests here has talked about used car salesmen there. So
I recall that. Yes, absolutely. But that's the perception, right? I mean, people sort of
It's a shame.
of people.
It's a shame.
And it's built, these incredible sort of platforms now where you can basically get your car online, so you don't have to go into the dealership and subject yourself to a salesman. But you guys also have an online presence as well.
We have a very big online presence, and it's a big online presence that was started up really by my partner and CEO, Alex, years ago, well ahead in 2008, 2009. We started that, and we were trying to be ahead of everyone else at that time, and we continue to grow that, and my son was involved in that early on also as well, and we still continue that. And obviously now when the pandemic hit, that was also a great part for us to be able to pivot even more and do greater. But what you find out is when it comes to a vehicle, it's still a very personal thing. And when it comes to a vehicle, people still like to be able to see and touch and feel.
Sure.
And they like to be able to know. And what I think has to be, and the most important thing that's still important in car sales, is that I tell folks every single time, the most important thing that I can give to you is trust. And what you're looking for is transparency. And what we lack today many times in business, I feel all the time, is transparency and that genuine trust that people can look at. And when you feel comfortable with me, and when you feel comfortable with the organization, and when you feel comfortable with us, you'll do business with us. Yeah. Whether it be online or whether it be in person. I think you're going to look online 100%. Not 90, not 95, not 99, 100%. And you're going to do it in the comfort of your home. You're going to do it in your kitchen. You're going to do it in your family. You're going to do it in your favorite couch. And you're going to look online, and you're going to look through it. And I love an educated consumer. An educated consumer is the easiest consumer to work with because now he knows or she knows what they want. Now they have a better understanding. And then I can do my part, which is to help them find and source what they need. And if I can help them find and source what they need, it makes it happy. It makes it easier. And that's what we try to work with. Many times when people look at, they look at us as a commodity. And I don't want to be looked at as a commodity. I want to look at be someone that's an expert and someone that can help you and can source for you what you need and how you need it. There's been too many mistakes that I've seen in my career where people want the wrong car and get the wrong car for the wrong reasons. And you still have to find out, and I always say, find the mission. People say, Mario, what do you mean the mission? They want to get the car and they want to drive. No, there's a mission sometimes because a car serves many multiple purposes for a family. And if you don't find out exactly what the mission, it could be they're going to take the Little League team, or they're going to be the traveling, they're going to take their vacations, so many things. And if you find the right mission and you fit them in the right vehicle, good things will happen.
Excellent, excellent. Listen, this is a fascinating conversation with Mario Murgado. We're going to break for a quick commercial break, and we'll be back to talk to Mario about how the world changed just a couple of months ago with COVID-19. Obviously, it's dramatically changed the way we do business in America, including at automobile dealerships. So I want to talk to Mario a little bit about that. But let's break for a commercial, and we'll be back in just a few minutes with Mario to talk about what's happened in his business over the last few months.
We are Entv USA. Log on now and check out our live shows and subscribe. You don't want to miss this. Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Línea Deportiva, a sports line. At 7 p.m., O Que Chisme, the best celebrity gossip show with Odi Abreu. At 8 p.m., Punto Final, another angle of news. 9 p.m. Mondays and Wednesdays, we have A Lo Cortés with Tony Cortez. Tuesdays at 9 p.m., Dame un Like. Thursdays, also at 9 p.m., De Noche con Roche. Fridays, 9 p.m., Más con Más with Raul Canosa. Every Wednesdays at 4 p.m., we've got Brisky Business with Dave Brisky. Followed by Inmigración en Fronteras with lawyer Irving Gonzalez at 5 p.m. This is our programming for Entv USA from right here in Miami for the rest of the world. Con una vista, basta. Show some love and give us a like.
Ay, Dayamisa, yo te estaba buscando en mi vida. Me dijeron que tú eres la mejor para cotizarme un seguro para mi carro.
Claro que sí, aquí en Diamond Insurance te vamos a hacer una cotización que se ajuste a tu bolsillo y a tus necesidades de seguro.
Ay, mi vida, y con lo caro que están los seguros en la Florida.
Han subido, pero un poquito, pero no te preocupes, nosotros aquí tenemos muchos años trabajando todo el estado con muchas compañías.
Ay, eso es lo que yo necesito. ¿Y qué tengo que hacer? ¿Cómo compro mi póliza?
Nada, con una simple llamada, un mensaje de texto, un email, cotizamos tu póliza completamente gratis y en minutos, porque somos la manera más fácil para asegurarte.
Dayami, aquí, entre tú y yo. ¿Tú sí me vas a contestar?
Claro que sí, nosotros siempre contestamos.
Ay, ¿verdad que un diamante es un diamante? Con Diamond Insurance me siento asegurado.
¿Segura que sí?
Welcome back to Más con Más. Thank you for being with us, and thanks again to our sponsors, Longevity, Cachita Café, and also to Grimal Joyeria for the support of this program. We're having a fascinating conversation with Mario Murgado, one of the principal figures behind Brickell Motors here in South Florida. A fascinating individual who's been in the car business now for 40 years. And during the break, we were talking about, how the process of selling automobiles usually takes place, which for many people is not a comfortable experience. And it oftentimes is seen as sort of not a commodity purchase, but something that I have to sort of go through because I need a car. And I was telling Mario, look, that experience is obviously a negative one. And it's much more important to talk about selling not just as a commodity or as you're selling a product, but rather you're really selling a customer experience, correct?
Absolutely. We try all the time. It's to create the right experience and getting the right fit for that customer. And what we want to do is make sure that we can create the right atmosphere for them, make sure that they feel comfortable with us, make sure that they can trust us, and make sure that we can be completely transparent with anything. One of the things that I've done recently at every store that we built, let me give you an example. We built the showroom, which is our living room, but we built also our service department where it's built into it so you can see it. Why? Right. Because many times when the car's in the back, people never get to see what's being done. Mm-hmm. And I want the customer to see that and feel that and understand it and know it. We want to make sure that every salesperson has a relationship with that customer and develops that relationship. And we want to make sure that that customer can feel that they can call. If you want to reach me, you have my cell, you have my email, and I pick up my direct line all the time, not my assistant. Right. That's the easiest way for us to make sure that we can develop that line of communication for that customer, because that's the first step for us.
One of the things that always impresses me when you walk into at least the dealership on Southwest 8th Street is that wall of letters of appreciation from clients, many of whom are people that we know in this community, right? Thank you so much for helping with the purchase of my whatever X automobile, and it's literally dozens and dozens on the wall. The other thing that impressed the hell out of me was walking into your service center and taking a look at the floor and realizing, hell, we could have a picnic here, man. I mean, this floor is that clean, right? I mean, that's not something you typically associate with a service operation. But again, it gets back to the mentality of, how do you run the business? I mean, you run it clean, you run it efficiently, you run it, in a way that you're proud to sort of show it off to visitors and other people. Let's talk about what's transpired in the last couple of months. Obviously, COVID-19, a huge hit to the U.S. economy. I saw the figures the other day. General Motors reported, I think, an operating loss of roughly $800 million during the second quarter of this year. Ford just came out, I think, the other day. I think their loss was close to $2 billion or so. Both companies burning through enormous sums of cash during these last few months in order to sort of stay afloat. And obviously, it had to have an impact on your business. How did you deal with it? I mean, obviously, this was not something that I think anybody could have projected, right? But you guys pivoted and you changed your way of doing business, and you're managing to survive, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And let me share with you something really important here. I think the auto industry is probably one of the most resilient industries that you can ever find. Mm-hmm. And it's one that adapts on a consistent basis, but one that adapts and serves. And I say the word serves because it serves our nation, and it serves our consumers, and it serves really all our citizens on a consistent basis. It always has. I think one of the greatest times you can say that proof is back in 1941 when we went to war in World War II, when we stopped producing cars and we went out there and said, let's produce all the wartime materials that we need. Sure. When you did that, we stopped selling cars. At that time, you would say you would lost all your dealers. Well, we only lost about 18% of dealers. So 82% survived. And we survived by selling used cars, by repairing cars, by servicing cars, by being there, and by really cutting back to the bare bones and things. This pandemic was really a tough hit for us. No one expected this in January. No one expected this in February. We were moving along well. We were looking forward to 2020. We were excited about it. Our theme for the year was on focus, because 2020 would focus. So we were really excited about it. We get hit with this in March. We have a terrible March. We have an even devastating April for us also as a company, as an organization. We made a decision early on to say, we're not going to lay off any one of our employees. We're going to keep them through, because you can't play offense by playing defense. So we're going to make sure we have an offense, and we're going to be ready, and we did that. We were supported with that very, very well with our employees and encouraged by it. But it's a difficult situation, and as we pivot off by saying, let's do things online as much as we possibly can. Let's go pick up customers' vehicle. And then we saw from the government standpoint, where we had the opportunity to say, let's stay open as an essential business. I think we proved to really the entire country how essential our business is. Sure. And it's essential because you can't have access, you can't go to the hospital, you can't go to the doctors, you can't go to the drugstores, you can't go to the supermarket to get all the things if you don't have a vehicle. And you have to have service. And even though our service business went down dramatically in some cases, we were able to do those things because people were driving, and because people were able to repair their vehicles and do things. In some states, we were able to shut down our showrooms, but we were able to still do business with them also as well. Now, as we pivot here, I still think that inventories have been really tight because supply line. So the supply chain has been today is quite different than what it was in 1940s. Today we do cars, we do parts all over the world. Sure. And as we do and source,
huge multinational business.
So as we source parts from all over the world, that becomes a much more challenging. But I will tell you that I believe that I'm very proud of really all our manufacturers. Some have done more than others, but all our manufacturers have done a phenomenal job. All our manufacturers have reacted to this and have been proactive to this to make sure they can do everything possibly they can to make sure, number one, they can bring the inventories down, number two, that they can offer the best deals, and number three, the finance institutions, led by both the captives and led by those like great banks like Chase, JP Morgan Chase, out there doing great things to say, let's give you some defer, let's give you some opportunities here, both to the dealers and to the consumers. And those things have been very, very helpful. And I think
are you
that's
starting to
helped us.
see people coming back into the showroom, or is it mainly online still? I mean,
Yeah, the minute we had a downturn, the minute people were, it's no one. Americans don't like being put down. Americans cannot be locked down. Americans cannot be in their homes. Americans cannot be just said you can't do this. The American spirit is the strongest spirit you can ever have. They are so strong and so powerful about moving forward, and they believe nothing can hold them back. And that is what drives them, and that is what pushes. This is the greatest country in the world with the greatest innovation, and they don't want to be that. And the minute we had the chance to have them back in the showroom, they were doing it. Obviously, they want to go to a showroom that's safe. They want to go to a showroom that's clean. They want to feel that you're a great environment, and that's what we have to do. We clean every single day. We do the smog. We do everything. We bought the machines. We brought the people early on. Everything we possibly can to make sure that they're safe.
I'm going to put you on the hot spot now with sort of a little bit of a charged question. On a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate the performance of our local political leaders in terms of handling the COVID-19 in our area and reopening the economy?
Okay, so I would tell you on a 1 to 10, I give you a 5, and I'll say, but I will also tell you that it's not fair for neither one of us to be able to go rate them, because it's always easy to sit on the sideline and to go put a number on it. And I think when you deal with personal things, it becomes a real challenge for people. It's a situation they never were involved in. It's a situation they've never had to deal with. And I think it's a situation that today they're dealing with something that you and I have not dealt with. And that is the peer pressure.
Nobody's dealt with this.
No, but aside of that, the peer pressure and the social pressure of what everybody does. If I make a decision today, how is socially am I going to be held upon and accountable on? And what are they going to say to me? And that's a sad part. Because today, people too much, the polarization out there is terrible. And today, way too much, people are saying, am I Republican, am I Democrat? It's this, and they're forgetting that we're not Republican, we're not Democrat. You know what we are? We're Americans. We're Americans. And you know more than that? We're human beings. And you know what we have to do? We have to think about that. And if you think about that, and you put that first and foremost than anything else, great things will happen. But we forget that. And we start thinking about everything else. And that's what we have to go change. And that's really the true pivot that they have to do. I can't do that for them. You can't do that for them. They have to do that. And if they do that, and they go with their gut, and they reflect on it, they'll do the best they possibly can at that time. And I don't expect them to do things for me. I always tell my sons, and I've always told people, there are things that I can do that I influence, and there's things that concern me. I have to work on what I can influence all the time. That's like making deposits in my account. Things that concern me is like taking withdrawals. So let me make deposits. Let me go work every single day what I can do with my business, what I can work with my people, how I can motivate my people.
Sure, but government has an influence on your business, right? I mean, to the extent that you've got political leaders saying stay at home, I mean that hurts a business, right? I mean,
and they have it, and
it's in some cases it's very justifiable, right? I mean, and I think your point is valid. Look, I mean, we've got sort of a situation that nobody was really expecting. It's a horrible tragedy. And, how do you open up the economy without, seeing this enormous spike that we're having again in cases, right? One of the things that I've been very, strong about is, look, I don't like wearing a mask. I don't know anybody who likes to wear a mask, right? It's uncomfortable. It's, it's not something that you're used to. But I say to people, again, getting back to what you just mentioned, look, forget about the politics. We're all Americans. We're all humans. And I look at it as, I'm part of a greater society. If my wearing a mask makes the person next to me in Publix or out on the street a little bit more comfortable, makes them feel, hey, I don't have to worry about my health as much as I should. Why not? It's an inconvenience, but it's not the end of the world, right? So,
and I'll do it.
And we'll do it. So, but listen, I think your point is very valid. But still, I mean, where do you see ourselves 2 or 3 months from now? Do you think we'll still be in this sort of back and forth of, a lot of people tell me, come November 3rd, a lot of this noise that's out there is going to disappear one way or another. Maybe replaced with something else. But there is so much politics right now that everything is now seen through the lens of partisanship.
Raul, and that's exactly what I see today, and that's the part that hurts me the most, because I think it is like that. And I think today that everything has been said out there and is being said today, it's all about how does it look from a partisan standpoint, and instead of being said, how does it look for an American? How does it look for our country? How does it look for our people? And that is sad. It is disappointing to me, because we should be looking at this as a war. It's a war against us, but it's a war that we can win. We will win. It'll take time. It'll take challenges, but we've overcome all those challenges before.
One thing I also wanted to sort of touch upon with you, you mentioned that the automotive industry is today a multinational business. Obviously, you know, the United States is going through a very challenging period of time with China in particular. China produces a lot of automotive products and automobiles themselves. To what extent do you think that deterioration in the relationship between U.S. and China is going to hurt your industry, if it hasn't already?
My personal opinion, not business opinion, my personal opinion is I'm glad we're doing what we're doing right now. It's about time. I think we've made a crucial mistake. We have given China 40 years of really freedom, and 40 years to do whatever they wanted to do and look the other way and not looked at really what they've done, not looked at really the problems they bring on. Frankly, over these past 40 years, the head start we've given them is dramatic. Frankly, I challenge every manufacturer that goes and does business there, that you go there, you don't go like you thought you might have gone 40 plus years ago, where you said, let me go give you my products that no longer are going to be sold. You go there today and you have to give them your best products. You go there today and you sell 49% of your company, because you have to be a partner with the Communist Party and they buy 51%. So I expect that you better be selling at least double what you're going to plan to sell, because you got to be able to keep that margin, and it's not that easy. You're expected to go build eventually a company there. No, give me a second. And you're giving them the opportunity to go take all your intellectual property and your best of your property to have there. So that's what you want to do, and that's what you want to do. You're selling kind of your soul just to be there, and you're doing it on the hopes that you have, because you're mesmerized by the 1.4 billion people that they have there, and you're thinking that market's only going to grow. And yes, that market's going to grow, but that market, if you look at it carefully, from an economic standpoint, it's about 155 to 160 million people only that are really the ones that are buying. So it's more or less like our middle class at 140 million, 145 million that's there. But what I would tell you, and what I would ask you to do is, America is the greatest place to do business. And America is the greatest place to do business really because two things. One, it's a place of laws.
Sure.
And because of laws, you're protected. Everyone's protected by it. You may not agree all the time, but you're protected. And it's a place that you can plan for your future. Why? Because if you want to pass a law today, like the CAFE standards, you have X amount of time so you can plan for it. Over there, they don't do that. If they want to get rid of a city and they want to put a highway through it, they tell you on Friday, and on Monday they're coming through the bulldozers. That's what they do.
Fascinating. Absolutely. A very interesting perspective on the part of Mario. I noticed today, or just the other day, the U.S. government gave a $750 million loan to Kodak to begin manufacturing the precursor chemicals needed to make a lot of our generic pharmaceuticals. For too long, we've been dependent on China, and it's time to sort of reclaim that high ground, even though, as you know, GM sells an awful lot of automobiles in China, as do the other major automobile manufacturers, and they've been seduced. They've been seduced by the growth of China. But you're right, if you strip it out and you just look at, okay, how many vehicles are being sold and how big is the middle class, it's not much bigger than ours.
No. So. And if I can interrupt a second, I will share with you. I think there's better solutions for us if we quit focusing so much on China and we focus back on South America and North America.
Sure.
And if we go focus back here and say, what can we go do and how can we go develop it? If we want to manufacture it and manufacture cheaper, we think, and we want to do more business here, let's go manufacture in South America. Let's go develop South America. And if we go enrich South America and do things in our hemisphere, by doing so, I will tell you what, this immigration problem that you think we have or exists, it's so bad, guess what? We'll eliminate that way. Terrific. We won't have as much coming here if we enrich and we take care of that.
Terrific.
We'll eliminate the communism that's here. We'll eliminate the markets that is trying to grow here. But we got to enrich our hemisphere instead of enriching that hemisphere there.
Excellent.
That's the approach we need to take.
Mario, it's been a fascinating interview. I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, we're sort of running out. I thank you for being with us. Hopefully in another opportunity we'll have some chances to go even more in depth into some of these subjects. Appreciate you being on the program. I think the audience enjoyed this immensely. And again, thank you for being here on Moscow Mas.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
And we're going to break for a commercial. Then we're going to come back later on and talk a little bit about the news events of the week. And hopefully you'll find that just as interesting as this conversation with Mario, although I somewhat doubt it. But stick around if you don't mind. We are ENTV USA. You can find us on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Roku. You can also download our mobile applications either from Google Play or from the Apple Store, depending on your online device. Give us a shot. You'll like what you see. Con una vista, basta.
Super Greens is a one-of-a-kind blend that's loaded with hard-to-find nutrient-dense superfoods. We've used what we've learned from our more than 20 years working with mineral-based nutrition to create one of the healthiest, plant-based nutritional products available. Each superfood was carefully selected so that it complements and enhances the others, helping to maximize Super Greens' nutritional power. Next, we added a specialized fermentation technique to increase the bioavailability of each superfood. Finally, we put in powerful probiotics and enzymes for added digestive support to give you jam-packed nutritional support. Youngevity Super Greens, the highly alkalinizing super supplement that helps balance your body. It's the superfood-powered way to get more organic fruits and veggies in your day, all in just one scoop. Check with your Youngevity distributor to learn more.
More and more healthcare professionals and people seeking alternative and natural health treatments are turning to hemp-based products because of the growing body of research supporting its benefits. Youngevity has leveraged our years of natural plant-based nutritional research to introduce 3 new products. Hemp FX Soothe helps support muscles and joints by enhancing a healthy immune response and reducing free radical stress. For optimal results, it contains our hemp-derived CBD plus the powerful antioxidant glutathione. Hemp FX Relax helps ease the mind and the body for a deep and restful sleep. We combined our hemp-derived CBD with melatonin to help support your best night's sleep. To help support positive energy for your mind and your mood, we created Hemp FX Uplift. In combination with St. John's wort and a specialized set of terpenes and cannabinoid enhancers. To learn more about Hemp FX, contact your Youngevity distributor or visit hempfx.com.
Welcome back. Thank you for sticking with us. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Mario Murgado, the founder and co-owner of Brickell Motors here in Miami, Florida. Fascinating individual who's built an incredible business. I wanted to have Mario on the program because, you know, I think sometimes we forget that the economic success that Miami has become, at least during my lifetime, didn't come easily. You know, I mean, it came on the basis of a lot of hard work on the part of a great many individuals, folks that were here back in the 60s, but also a lot of folks from a lot of different immigrant communities, initially the Cuban American community that fled communist Cuba, came here to Miami, and really helped turn Miami from being sort of a sleepy little tourist town into being sort of the economic powerhouse that it is today, the so-called capital of Latin America, banks, foreign trade, cruise industry, a lot of these things that have really changed the nature of Miami. And, you know, Mario's story is unique because, as you heard him describe, he started off as a car salesman. He started off as a car salesman, and today he is the owner of, in essence, a national chain of automobile dealerships with $600 million in sales, hundreds of employees, and he started off as a car salesman. And that just goes to show what we've talked about on this program before, that really anybody can make it in America. That's what the American dream is about. It's not about everybody making the same amount of money or having the same house, the same car, whatever. It's about having the same opportunity. Mario, you heard his story. He started off in Chicago, went to public schools, eventually came here to Miami, and started working at Braman Motors, and worked his way up through the ranks at Braman Motors, and eventually spun off and decided to create his own business, and that's where he is today. I don't want to keep talking about Mario. You already saw the interview, but he's a remarkable individual, very involved in our community, and I was so glad that I had this opportunity to discuss his life story with you. Wanted to reflect a little bit on the news of the week that's transpired. One of the things that caught my eye yesterday, or the day before yesterday, which really was not very well reported in the press, was the testimony of Sally Yates in front of the Senate committee investigating, Senate Judiciary Committee, I believe it is, headed by Senator Lindsey Graham. And Sally Yates was being interviewed because she was a very key figure in the Obama administration during the transition from the Obama presidency to the Trump presidency. And she was in a meeting that occurred, I think it was on January 5th, right before the president was inaugurated, or Trump was inaugurated into office. It was a meeting in the White House. And in that meeting was a discussion about Michael Flynn, who at the time was the incoming national security advisor to the president. Michael Flynn had been picked up in a counterintelligence operation. What does that mean? The FBI is not only our federal law enforcement agency, but ever since they were established in 1917, the FBI has also had the responsibility in America for conducting counterintelligence operations. Basically what that means is they protect us from people trying to spy on us. As a result of that, the FBI routinely taps the telephone conversations and eavesdrops on communications of our adversaries, potential adversaries, including those of Russia. And at the time, the FBI had an ongoing counterintelligence operation against the Russians, and they were monitoring the conversations of their ambassador here in the United States that Michael Flynn paid a visit to. And as a result of that, Michael Flynn was picked up having that conversation with the U.S.-Russian ambassador. Now, mind you, there is nothing wrong or unseemly about the incoming national security official, the incoming national security advisor to the incoming president of the United States, meeting with foreign leaders before assuming office, right? We're trying, there is a period of time between an outgoing administration and an incoming administration, a sort of a gray period there where, yes, we still have one president, we still have one foreign policy, but everybody knows that during those 30, 60, 90 days before the inauguration date, there is a period of time during which the incoming administration has to begin taking over the reins, has to begin communicating with foreign leaders, with the government itself internally, that these are what my policies are going to be. This is what we intend to do when there is a change of government. And that is precisely what Michael Flynn, as the incoming national security advisor, was doing when he met with the Russian ambassador, Kirilak, I believe his name is, just prior to the inauguration. FBI picked him up in that conversation. The day before that meeting took place in the White House that I alluded to on June 5th, on June 4th, the FBI had apparently determined that there was no good reason for continuing the counterintelligence investigation against Michael Flynn that he had sort of gotten himself wrapped up in. Come January 5th, the president has this meeting in the White House. Why was he having that meeting in the White House? He was having that meeting in the White House because, as you recall, right before the election, the Russians had hacked into the servers of the Democratic National Committee. They had published some very embarrassing, email communications, and they had really sort of thrown a monkey wrench into the DNC. And as you can imagine, that made Democrats very angry and upset, even though the FBI had tried to warn them that they were possibly going to be hacked. Apparently, the FBI tried calling the DNC, but could never seem to get anybody of any significance on the line to talk to them. They ended up talking to like their IT techs or something. And turns out the DNC gets hacked. But still, the election had not occurred, and the Democrats thought for sure that they were going to be in the White House. Well, guess what happened? That didn't happen, right? The Democrats lost the election. Suddenly, they're facing the prospect that Donald Trump will be in the White House. And I think at that point, the administration of Barack Obama was rather angry, okay? As were a lot of the people that had worked in the Obama administration. They suddenly realized that they were all going to be out of a job. And they sort of, to a certain extent, blamed the Russians for their own failures in having won that election. They wanted to make a boogeyman out of Russia, and they wanted to somehow figure out a way to get Trump involved with the Russians. And what did the president do? He actually waited a very long period of time. He waited until late December before he decided to expel a bunch of Russian diplomats from the United States. And that was, I believe, in late December. And around that same time is when the National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn, went calling on the Russian ambassador and had a very simple message for him and said, listen, we're going to be in power in about 20 days, okay? We understand you're ticked off because Obama just kicked out a bunch of your, diplomats. Why? Because you were basically, hacked into the DNC. But before we turn this into one big tit for tat, don't overreact. Give us a chance because we're going to be taking over the reins in about 20 days. We'd like to see if we can't reset this relationship. So give us some time. That was basically the gist of Michael Flynn's conversation with the Russian ambassador. And what ended up happening is Obama couldn't understand why Putin had not reacted to the closure, I should say the closure, the throwing out of so many Russian diplomats from the United States. And it was partly because of that conversation that took place. So on January 5th, the president meets with his senior officials, and we find out that Sally Yates, who was interviewed yesterday, she had no idea that the FBI had gotten Michael Flynn wrapped up in this counterintelligence operation. And she also had no idea that Director James Comey had decided to send some FBI agents to interview Michael Flynn about that conversation he had with the Russians without first consulting with her and without having the courtesy of advising the president's counsel that this conversation was going to take place with one of his incoming advisors. What that shows me, what that series of events shows me, she confirmed this in this conversation with Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham asked Sally Yates if she thought that, in Lindsey Graham's words, that Director Comey had, quote, gone rogue. And Sally Yates looked at the camera and said, yes, you can characterize Mr. Comey as having gone rogue. I thought that was a tremendous admission. I mean, here is the Sally Yates, a career prosecutor, the acting Attorney General of the United States at the time, basically saying that her own FBI director was going behind her back and conducting an investigation, not a counterintelligence operation anymore, now a criminal investigation of Michael Flynn without really her approval, her seal of approval or her blessing. And I think, it just really struck me that the FBI perhaps should no longer have both of those responsibilities, the responsibility for counterintelligence operations and the responsibility to also do criminal investigations. Because as we've seen in the Michael Flynn situation, a counterintelligence operation that really had nothing unsavory about it, you know, the National Security Advisor had every right to meet with the Russian ambassador, suddenly becomes a criminal investigation with the possibility that he had committed some sort of a crime, which in the end they basically nabbed him because he was not entirely forthright with the details of the conversations that he had with the Russian ambassador. They accused him of having lied to FBI agents, and he's still tied up in the courts over that to this day. And I just think that that's too much power. I think it's too much power. I think that that counterintelligence operation should be removed from the hands of the FBI and should be given to a separate agency, perhaps within the Department of Homeland Security, such that there is a very clear distinction between our counterintelligence operations and the FBI's law enforcement capability and ability to charge people with federal crimes. I think it's too much power in one hands. The Department of Justice, the FBI, are not, you know, we've sort of learned the hard way that they are not always the great sort of pantheons of, you know, truth, justice, and the American way. That you know, the symbol of the blind justice holding the scales of justice don't always operate that way. And that conversation with Sally Yates with Lindsey Graham, I think was absolutely shocking. I encourage you to take a look at it. Just Google Sally Yates, Lindsey Graham, James Comey, whatever. I'm sure you'll find it on YouTube. And that admission on her part that the director of the FBI had basically gone rogue and was itching to sort of, you know, nail Michael Flynn was absolutely shocking, at least to me. A couple other things I want to talk about real quick. Karen Bass being considered for vice president for Joe Biden as her vice presidential pick. A woman who has been a lifelong sympathizer of the Castro regime. A woman who has also been seen and photographed with Chavez and later on Nicolás Maduro in Venezuela. Early on in her life, she went to Cuba as a member of the Venceremos Brigade. Venceremos in Spanish stands for "We Will Triumph." And it is basically the battle cry of communists all throughout the Spanish-speaking Latin American world. That they will, you know, defeat capitalism, that they will defeat the American imperialists. That is what Venceremos means to those of us that come from a Cuban-American background or a Hispanic background. And she joined that as a youth and continued her affiliation with the Castro brothers all throughout her entire lifetime. She became, and by the way, those Venceremos brigades were actually started by the Cuban Secret Service, along with help of the KGB. And there have been unclassified reports that have come out over the years, wherein it's been said that the Venceremos Brigade, and it makes perfect sense, were being used by the KGB and the Cubans as a possible recruiting tool for future spies in the United States. Think about that. Here you have a woman who participated in the Venceremos Brigades, who has spent her entire lifetime traveling back and forth to Cuba, playing footsies with you know, Raul and Fidel Castro, being photographed with him, lamenting his death when he passed away, Fidel Castro, being photographed with Chavez, being photographed with Maduro in Venezuela. And she's a congressional member, representative from the Los Angeles area, the head of the Congressional Black Caucus, and to think that the Democratic Party would consider her to be their vice presidential pick, literally a heartbeat away from the president. And as we've all seen, Joe Biden is not exactly either in the best physical shape or in the best mental shape. I think that's absolutely crazy. I think it's absolutely ludicrous. And yet, just a short while ago, I saw that there's 300 progressive members of the DNC who are pounding on the table saying, no, Karen Bass has to be the vice presidential pick. That goes to show you that the DNC has been co-opted by this progressive wing, by the Bernie Sanders wing, and they're pushing basically to have a closet socialist, maybe even a closet communist, being put on the Democratic presidential ticket as the vice presidential running mate. That, in my mind, is absolutely absurd. I'll tell you what else is absurd. What I saw just the other day. Coral Gables Mayor Raul Valdez-Fowley. Let me repeat that. Coral Gables Mayor Raul Valdez-Fowley backing Karen Bass to be the vice presidential nominee of the Democratic Party. An absolute outrage that a Cuban-American leader of this community would go out and support somebody like Karen Bass to be the vice presidential pick of the Democratic Party. Absolutely outrageous. He ought to be thrown out of the city of Coral Gables. He ought to be pursued out of the city and find someplace else to live, quite frankly. I got very upset when I saw that, as you can probably tell. One of the things going on, these riots in Portland and Seattle continue. There's a video, hopefully we'll see if we can find a little segment of it. You know, they're getting more violent. There's a video that I saw out there, a gentleman in a pickup truck trying to work his way through a bunch of Antifa rioters. One of the Antifa rioters tries to block, comes up to his car, starts pounding on the window. Another one tries to block his path with a motorcycle. And this guy basically just floors it, runs over the motorcycle. Luckily, the motorcyclist had fallen off at that point, and just goes 12 city blocks, dragging that motorcycle with him. And all these crazy Antifa people chasing after him with their cameras, trying to capture his license plate and making themselves to be the victim when they were the ones that attacked this guy in his car. This is absolutely incredible. I can't believe this is going on in America. Really. I mean, and I can't think of one Democrat that has come out uncategorically and criticized this violence that they're seeing throughout America. It is shameful, and it is shameful that we have Coral Gables Mayor Raul Valdez-Fowley saying that we should have Karen Bass as the vice presidential nominee of the Democratic Party. Like I said, he should be run out of town, in my view. One last thing, what's going on in the economy? Well, we got some numbers today. 1.8 million jobs created this past month in July, as compared to 4.7 million during the month of June. Not a particularly good number. These numbers reflect the sort of bounce back in the jobs numbers following the reopening of the economy. And it was a good number to see that 4.7 million in June. A lot of people were not expecting such a strong number. That's what we got in June. But now in July, we're seeing 1.8 million jobs created. Not a particularly good number. We have to do better in terms of reopening our economy. We have to do better in terms of controlling the pandemic. I still encourage people to wear those masks, be very careful as we go forward. But we got to get this economy back on track. Otherwise, we're going to be languishing out here for a while. Republicans and Democrats can't seem to decide how much money they're going to spend on this next round of stimulus. Democrats want $3 trillion. Republicans want $1 trillion. They're very far apart. The $600 has not yet been approved to continue for the unemployment claims. Let's hope that they can continue to provide that support to those that need it. And there's also, a lot of speculation that there may or may not be this $1,200 stimulus checks like were given out several months ago coming as well. Look, we've got enormous problems in this country. We've got an election coming up. We need to be paying attention, and we need to make sure that we get our economy up and running again, because if the pandemic doesn't physically kill us, the pandemic will kill our economy, and there's going to be a lot worse problems down the road. So thank you for being with us this evening. Apologies for being a little bit long-winded perhaps and getting a little bit angry here, but as you can tell, I'm a very passionate person, and I hope that you share some of that passion with me. Thank you for being on this program. Thank you to our sponsors, Cachita Coffee, Entv USA, Grimal Joyeria, Longevity, especially for their patronage of this program. Very grateful to them, and thank you for watching us this evening.